Okay, I haven't done a cooking video in a while, so we're going to do that today. And what we're going to do is we're going to make gumbo. First thing you need for gumbo, you're going to need chicken broth. You can buy chicken broth in the store, or I just like to make mine with these cubes. It's cheaper that way. I got 4 cups of water there. You need a big cast iron pot. You need flour and oil to make your roux. Although my roux is going to be made with the oil that comes off of the chicken and the andouille chicken. For this one, I'm gonna have a bunch of people coming over, so I'm gonna do 5 chicken thighs, big hunks of andouille. This is the first time I'm using VERON andouille sausage. I usually use French Settlement, which is really good, but most andouilles are pretty good. And then you also need some seasoning. This is my special blend. And you're gonna need onions, bell peppers, celery, the Trinity. I use a large onion. These are medium onions, so I'm gonna use 2, 1 whole bell pepper, and you want about a cup of each one of these, which that'll be about a cup, and then a cup of celery. And then we're gonna garnish it with green onions. All right, so first thing to do is go get to chopping up your Trinity. And there it is, the Holy Trinity. Any Cajun recipe, if you're using gumbo, etoufe, pastalaya, all kinds of stuff that is New Orleans based or Cajun based, you're going to start with that Holy Trinity. And it's just diced up. So diced up bell peppers, onions, and celery. It's a beautiful sight. Alright, while I got the Trinity cut up and I prepare everything else, I am going to start the chicken broth. I got it on high, just going to try to get it to a boil. I'm going to crush it up with a spoon. Just going to kind of separate it up with a spoon, get it mixed in there real good. Let it come to a boil, and then I'll just let it sit here and simmer so it'll stay warm. So it'll be ready when I'm ready for it. When you're doing a gumbo, there's a couple of different things happening sometimes, and the more stuff you can have ready to go, the better. That's why I always pull up my flour, my oil, put it on the table here. As you can see way over there, I got everything else set up too. And just going to stir this in. Let this get to a boil while we come over here and we cut up our andouille. Alright, and there's our meats. We got chicken and andouille. And if you don't know what andouille is, then you are missing out. Andouille is made from pork intestines and tripe, which doesn't sound great, but it's delicious. It's super heavily seasoned and smoked. So when you open the pack and when you start cutting into it, you can smell the seasoning in there. So we got our meats, we got our Trinity here. I've mixed them up in a bowl. Just, you don't have to, but they're all mixed up in a bowl there. And we'll be ready to cook in a minute. All right, we're about to put in the meat. I got a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan, and we're gonna toss in the andouille first. Then we're gonna put the chicken in and put the cover on the top of it. I got a plate over here set to the side. It's got a little napkin on it so it can drain some of the grease out. And we have everything, as you can see, on the stove ready here. All right, let's see if it's heated up. It's getting pretty hot. We'll go ahead and dump it in. Yeah, there we go. All right, got my trusty wooden spoon here. We're just gonna keep mixing this up until it cooks throughout. We'll cook this all the way through. And if you're curious, I cut about an 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch slices of andouille. Kind of like this andouille here. It's the first time I'm using it, but this is the thickest andouille that I've ever used as far as round-wise girth. I think that's going to be good in here. You can do it a couple different ways. You can cube it up if you want as well. So I won't bore you with all the stirring. We'll just come back. I'll show you when it's ready. All right, that's just about done. Just want to get it nice and browned. I think I may have said earlier to cook it through. That is my bad if I did, but just nice and browned. I cooked it for about 10 minutes. Put it on your plate. Drain some of that grease off of there. A little bit. It's going to be a greasy, unhealthy dish, but it's delicious. That's how we do it down here in New Orleans. I'm gonna take all that out of there. And then the chicken's gonna go in next. The way I like to do my chicken, just throw it down in the bottom. It's gonna start popping. I'll put the top on. So we'll grab our chicken thighs. These are bone-in chicken thighs. Just spread them around in the pan. I like to do it the bottom first and then flip it over. Sometimes that skin can get stuck to the bottom of the pan. So you want to get that skin kind of starting to caramelize a little bit and warming up before you flip it. So we'll put all those in there and we'll put the top on. We'll cook it for about 5 or 10 minutes. We'll flip them and then we'll cook it for another 5 or 10 minutes and then we'll take it out. All right, it's been about 10 minutes and this is probably hot, so I'm gonna get my little mitt here. Oh yeah, keep cooking. Grab my tongs and we're gonna flip this chicken. This one we just want to get it browned. Whenever we're cooking the gumbo later and letting everything simmer, it'll cook the chicken fully through. So we're just browning it. So we'll flip it and put the top back on for another 10 minutes. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. We're going to get the chicken out, but first, I do want to tell you that I will tell you in the comments what's in the special seasoning recipe is, because guess what? You can't make gumbo without it. There's a bunch of different seasonings you can use, but this is my special recipe and I'll have it in the comments. So let's take a look at our chicken. Oh yeah, looks good. We got it browned up. That's about how you want it. We're gonna put it on the plate to drain, and I'm gonna take the skin completely off and toss it. Don't want the skin, just want the chicken. Put the skin on, make some nice grease. See all that grease in there? And just take the skin, throw it away. Now next is the fun part. This is the best part of making gumbo. We're gonna make the roux now. So the roux is just the grease from the chicken and the andouille. That's how I do it. Some people don't do it this way. They'll just use flour and oil straight up, but I think the grease from the chicken and the andouille gives it an awesome flavor. Now, to do a roux, it takes a while. So I will definitely have to cut this video. I know I've done a lot of cuts already, but I'm gonna have to cut this video a lot because it's gonna be about a half an hour of me stirring this roux. I like a nice, thick, dark roux for a gumbo. And the way you can tell a lot of times, like I like to call it, so it depends on how many beers you can drink while you make the roux on how dark you like to get your roux. My roux is about a 2-beer roux, or a beer and a half roux. So sipping my beer while I make my roux. Oh, that's looking beautiful. There's my beer. I'm ready to go. So to make your roux, you want to turn your heat down. I had my oven on about a 6. I turned it down to about a 3. I'm letting it cool down a little bit. Gonna get all that fat and skin and everything off the bottom here. That's all flavor right there. That is flavor. All right. So you want about a cup of flour and a cup of oil. There's already oil in here, but obviously it's not even close to a cup or oil or grease in here already. So we're gonna dump our cup of flour. I like to do it slow. Just gonna do about half of that. We're gonna add a little oil. Just gonna go a little at a time. Start getting it mixed up. Look at that. It's beautiful. Now, you could ruin a roux by burning it. So the trick to a roux is constant stirring. You want to always be stirring. Your hand's going to get tired from the stirring, but if you want a really good roux, constantly be stirring. Mix in some more flour. A little bit at a time is good. You don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to burn it. Keeping it on a low heat. and stirring constantly so it don't burn. Anything that sits on the bottom of that pan without being moved around will burn really quick, and that'll ruin your entire gumbo. You know, here in Louisiana they have gumbo in a jar. Make it easier on people, but that is not the best way to do it. Some of them are pretty good. At the camp we'll use them. If I'm in a hurry, maybe I'll use them, but this is the best way. A little more flour, a little more oil. You see how it kind of thickened up there? Got too thick, so put a little more oil. Now also with a roux is the base of a lot of Cajun dishes, but if you just want to make a gravy to go over rice, do an andouille chicken, and this is how you make a roux. Just put your flour and your oil in there, and then you got a fantastic tasting gravy to go over rice. I'm gonna add a little more flour. So we'll probably get through our cup. This is a tricky part. You got to know kind of what you're doing, and there's some trial and error to it. Put a little more flour. I'm gonna make sure that my entire cup of flour goes in there. And I'm gonna watch the consistency, because that's gonna tell me how much more oil I need. And to be honest, I think I'm good with oil. I don't think I'm gonna need the rest of my oil. I had a whole cup of oil in here, and as you can see, there's about a quarter of that cup left in there. I'm not gonna use that. But again, like I said, trial and error. I'm gonna grab a little bit more flour, because I like it to be a little bit thicker. I'm gonna put a little more in there. Now at this point, when you got your oil perfect, you just wanna do a little flour at a time, because you don't want to, I don't wanna add more oil to this. The less oil, the better, as far as getting your roux. It'll be, well, I don't know if you can make it any healthier, but the less oil, the better, right? But I do like it to be a little thick, so I'm gonna pour a little bit more in there. Thicken it up a little bit more. A little at a time now. So at this point, just a little bit. And if you see it start to clump, you went a little too far. I'm gonna just put a little more, and I think that's gonna be it. That's gonna be my roux right there. I like it. I like the way that looks. It's not watery and it's not clumpy. It's like right in the middle. So we're gonna just keep sitting here mixing and sipping our beer. And you wanna get about a beer and a half roux. I'm gonna cut the video. You can see how light it is right now. But as I sit here and stir and stir and stir, it's gonna get darker and darker. And we're looking for a chocolatey, dark brown color without burning it. As you can see, when I'm going through it on the bottom, you can still see the bottom of the pan, and it's not burning to it. So we're gonna cut the video, and we'll be back. All right, now you can see our roux is getting chocolatey brown, and I sip slow, so it wound up being a 1 beer roux. And I started it at 134. It's now 152. So this was about a 20-minute roux. And that's the color we want. Let's see if I can put it closer to the camera. Ooh, it was a little wet. You can kind of see the, well, the light is, the camera's light is not making it look great. But anyway, that's the color you want your roux to be. We're gonna take our Trinity and we're just gonna dump it in. That's gonna cool the roux down really fast, and you'll see it start to clump up. See that roux clump up like that? That's what you want. Here's the rest of it. I'm gonna change from my whisk to my wooden spoon. Here it is. Okay. We're gonna change our wooden spoon, and we're gonna stir in the Trinity until it's about translucent. You wanna get your onions, your bell peppers, your celery to be a little translucent, just cook down a little bit, not too much. Remember our chicken broth earlier that we made? That's going to go in next once this kind of cooks down a little bit. Look at that. That's the consistency you want there. See how it just kind of sticks to the spoon? That's good stuff right there. All right. Now we're going to get our chicken broth. I got 4 cups here. I'm going to pour all that in there. Already boiling. You want to get it to a nice rolling boil. And what I like to do is once I get it to a nice rolling boil, I'm going to kick it down to simmer, and I'm going to simmer all this for about a half an hour. Look at that. Ooh. Simmering that's going to break down those vegetables. It's going to break down that trinity to where at the end of this, the bell pepper, the onions, and the celery, you won't even be able to see it in here anymore. It's just going to all cook down. That flavor is going to get into the gumbo. So you don't have the crunchy vegetables, but that flavor is getting into the gumbo. So let's get this thing to a boil. It's a little too thick, so I got a little more water. This is all trial and error when you're doing this. There we go. Now let's get it to a boil and we'll bring it down. Alright, at this point what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the top on it. We won't get it to a boil. We're just going to simmer it. Going to put this top on. We're going to let it sit for about a half an hour and just let it simmer for a half an hour. Cook down all those vegetables nice. While that is simmering, just to show you, the chicken, I took all the skin off. And if you let the chicken sit, because it's obviously super hot when you first take it out, but if you let it sit, the skin peels off really super easy. So peel all that skin off and bring it over here. Woo, skin traveling. Garbage, don't want it. Okay, I want to show you real quick. I'm putting on a light simmer, so 2 on the stove, and just letting it sit for about a half an hour. I got the timer set at 30 minutes. We're gonna let that sit for a half an hour, just simmering those vegetables down. Okay, we're through our 30 minutes. About every 10 minutes, I stirred it so it didn't stick to the bottom. That's what she looks like. We'll give it a quick stir. And then this is where we put everything else in, and I like to let it sit for quite some time and simmer after this. So we're gonna go ahead and throw in our chicken. We're gonna throw in our andouille. Yeah. Stir all that in. Now what we're doing here, everything's gonna sit at a slow simmer now. I got the stove on a 1. So as low as you can go. And I like to let it sit for quite a few hours at this point. So halfway, let's say halfway through, another 30, 45 minutes, we're gonna take the chicken out, we're gonna debone it. But throw all that in now. Put that in the sink. And this is the point where we put our seasoning in as well. So with the seasoning, what you have to do is, I just like to get a heaping tablespoon, heaping large spoon, basically. See, and that's a good bit for the seasoning. Again, check out the ingredients below in the seasoning. There's some cayenne in there. There's some spices. It gets it pretty flavorful. But at the end of the day, a good gumbo takes a couple of tastings. So you're gonna have to get a couple of spoonfuls throughout as it sits here and simmers for the next couple of hours. And yes, I said next couple of hours. I like to let a good gumbo sit for a few hours and simmer and boil down. And that's it. We got the seasoning mixed in. We got the meat mixed in. I got the rice cooking in the pressure cooker. So that's the only other thing you'll need to do is make sure you have some rice on hand. And that's it. We're going to put the chicken in. We got the andouille in. We're going to let it simmer. We're going to let that chicken break down so we can just pull the bones out. And again, got the stove on a 1. So just a really light cook. And we'll be back in about 30 minutes, an hour. And we'll shred that chicken from the bone. Put the chicken back in, toss the bones, and man, we're in the home stretch. All right, this has been simmering for about an hour. We're gonna go ahead and pull our chicken at this point. We're gonna pull all our chicken out. And we're going to shred it, get the bones out, put it back in, and let it continue to simmer. So I got a fork here, and what we're going to do is just, like I said, shred that chicken. It should fall right off the bone. See, look at that. It's been simmering so long, it's so tender, falls right off the bone. Shred it up a little bit. Take the pieces and put it right back in there. Mix that in there real good. We'll get the lid and then just simmer it until you're ready to eat. I'll probably simmer it for another hour. Just keep cooking it down. Rub that bottom. Make sure nothing's burning on the bottom there. Like I said, the oven is still on 1, so just a slow simmer. We'll let it simmer for about another hour. Alright, that's it. It is now about 5:30. A couple hours of cooking. And then I'll show you the presentation in a minute. Alright, use a pressure cooker to get the rice done. Here we go.
The snake one was so cute though.
Alright, got the rice done, got the gumbo done. Let's just scoop it on the rice.
Baby.
This is still one of my favorite ones.
Alright. You know what? Make it look fancy. Watch. You ready? You ready for it to look fancy? Use an ice cream scoop. Top it with the green onions. And a slice of cornbread.
That's a first.
You don't have cornbread with you, gumbo?
Well, I don't cook cornbread too much.